Make a start. First of all, I need to inform you that this meeting is being filmed, but as you can see from the camera, it's facing this way, so only your voice will be captured if you come up and speak. So, moving straight away, any apologies?
Yes, Chairman, John Kyle.
Thank you. Picking up the fact that the apologies, you will notice that Malcolm Richards, the deputy, is here covering for John Kaiser. He will be able to participate in any debate or questions, but he is not allowed to vote, just to make that clear. And
Chairman,
yes, thank you. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Baptism of fire for you. Going on to the minutes of the previous meeting, pages 7 to 16. Do we have any queries, questions, or can I sign them? Thank you. Item 122, declaration of interests. Anthony.
I own property at Arborfield Court, and as such I suspect I have an interest in the Arborfield Relief Road. Whether it's prejudicial or not, I have no idea, but I think I will leave and let you decide it without me being present. But I will return.
I was going to say, that's fine as long as you come back. Okay, moving on to item 23, 123, public question time. I don't see Fiona here. Angus, do you want to provide an answer or do it?
I think it's partly covered in another question, so...
Okay, thank you. Then I'll be written on. Moving on quite quickly. 124, member question time. I'd just like to make a statement before we move into the two questions. On the topic of the first question, there has been an assurance panel which has come up with 8 recommendations in this area, and recommendation number 8 is effectively addressing this question. And the plan is to effectively follow this question, have an independent individual to make sure that children's services have all the processes in place to make sure that any child sexual exploitation is absolutely minimum, and the intention is to work with the members of the opposition to shape and frame and even appoint that individual. So I think that's an important statement to make. Lindsay?
Thank you, Keith, for making that statement. I withdraw the question in my name.
Thank you, Lindsay. Prue?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My question is, at the November, it's to Malcolm, sorry Malcolm. At the November council meeting, John Kaiser said that the Woking Town Centre car park strategy would go to the January executive meeting, and it didn't. Nor did it go to the February meeting, and it's not on the agenda for tonight. Can you tell me why it's been delayed?
Thanks, Craig. The answer I have for you is as follows. The specifics of car parking numbers required across the town will be dealt with in the planning applications for Elmsfield. In addition, a wider strategy for travel to and around the town is being written, and this will incorporate aspirations for car parking. And this vision document will be brought to members in due course.
Do you have something?
I do, thank you. I am slightly nervous about this because we are making, as a council, decisions about the regeneration and about roads and so on, major planning applications, where we don't have a comprehensive vision of what's happening with parking at the moment in the town, on street and off street, as well as the car parks. The off street, which is not part of the council's own car parks. And I would like to encourage you to push John into getting a move on and doing something more comprehensive. So you referred in your answer to something in due course. Do you have any idea of how long in due course?
I don't have a date for you on that, but on the other aspect, certainly I will speak to John about it.
Okay, thank you.
Malcolm? Can I also suggest, Prue, and I will also talk to John, that the two of you get together and have a meeting to thrash this out, because I know you've had concerns for some time. Thank you. So there's one extra question. Tom, would you like to come?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. The Local Flood Risk Management Strategy report shows that you do not have enough in-house expertise to draft a real comprehensive strategy. It also shows you don't have enough money in your budget to implement this strategy, and you have little expectations of getting any more money. Is it your only strategy to cross your fingers and hope it doesn't rain?
Thanks for the question, Tom. I'm not quite sure where you'll get your allegations from, but they're way off the mark again. By the way, I don't know whether your concerns were raised in the consultation that we carried out last year. The Council has developed a local flood risk management strategy in the form required by the Flood and Water Management Act 2010, working closely with our town consultant WSP. WSP have a wider range of expertise in this field than a small authority such as Woking could ever expect to employ. The project was overseen by the Council's Flood Risk Manager, who herself has a great deal of experience and expertise in flood and drainage matters. The action plan that arises from the strategy will be overseen by a working group composed of members and officers. And where necessary, we'll also employ expert advice on matters where we need additional resource. As and when specific projects are identified, then funding will be sought to realise them. Funding for flood protection may be from one or more of the following: the Council's own budgets, DEFRA, the Environment Agency, a levy which is placed annually on all lead flood authorities, of which we're one, or from developer contributions. The Council's capital programme, agreed at February Executive, clearly laid out additional funding for flood protection schemes. £200,000 a year has been allocated to general drainage and flood schemes, and £4.1 million has been allocated to address specific flooding problems, including on key parts of the road network. This is significantly more than has been allocated to flood schemes in previous years. In conclusion, this piece of work lays a solid foundation on which to build stronger protection against future flood events. Already we found last year that work done after the 2007 floods protected areas previously affected, and we'll be bringing forward schemes to reduce the impact on our roads, especially over the Loddon, which was the major issue in last year's flood event. I refute your allegations and trust my statement puts the record straight for our residents.
And I'm sure you have supplementary.
Thank you. Having spent this afternoon reading through all the wonderful reports in the flooding strategy and various mechanisms that are recommended in order to fill in forms to get money from the government, can you at least assure me that if the government allocates money to you for flood prevention, you use it for flood prevention rather than filling in potholes of the roads, which you're supposed to do anyway? Thank you.
The money is only normally allocated for specific schemes. The road ones I was referring to was things like the A327 between Arborfield and Shinfield, where the road floods there, and we hope, as part of the works for the start of the Eastern Relief Road in Shinfield, to raise the road so it doesn't flood, not fill in a pothole.
Thank you, Tom. So we move now on to the reports. The first one is the adoption of the Arborfield and Newland Village Design Statement Supplementary Planning Document, pages 17 to 42. And I guess that's Malcolm?
Me? Yes. This subject is basically about a quality SPD specification of a rural development in the borough, specifically this time for Arborfield and Newland Village. The Arborfield and Newland Village Design Statement, VDS, has been prepared by Arborfield and Newland Parish Council to enhance the quality of development in the parish, and with a view to preserving the rural qualities of Arborfield and Newland Parish. There are currently 11 village design statements that have been adopted by Wokingham Borough Council as supplementary planning documents. And the recommendation to Executive is to adopt the Arborfield and Newland Village Design Statement as a supplementary planning document.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Angus?
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's very good. I've worked with and on previous village design statements. Don't seem to have had any new ones for a while. What I do wonder is whether there's any direct link between having the village design statement and any neighbourhood plan.
Later on, there is something to do with neighbourhood plans as well. So.
Can I ask you to use
Oh, sorry. Yes, that is a question, but there is a separate point later on about neighbourhood plans in terms of process.
Thank you. Anyway, I do support this.
Any other? Anthony?
Sorry. Yes, just it may be linked to the later document, but the question of top slicing at 106. Does this form part of that, or is this something in a different document?
No. The seal is only to do with neighbourhood plans. This very much, in terms of the hierarchy, as I understand it, the design statement is much more appropriate for small parishes who don't want to go through the expense and time, because it's a huge expense, of neighbourhood plans, and it affords them some degree of protection linking into the planning process.
Okay, it doesn't cost us money.
No, it doesn't cost us money. So,
Consistent. Just on that they definitely can get referred to in field decisions, and they are definitely noted as part of the planning when it comes to appeals.
right, so if there's no more questions, I'll congratulate Arborfield and Newland to do this. As you said, we haven't had them for a long time. I think it would be helpful if all our parishes did this. So all those in favour of the recommendations, please show. That's unanimous. You nearly voted.
Nearly did.
So let's move on to item 126, school admission arrangements 2016-17, starting on page 43 to 126. Yes, that's Charlotte.
Thank you, Chairman. Every year we renew the admission arrangements and make amendments according to what we was doing at the time. This year there are very small amendments for the 2015-16 arrangements. Largely, there's one around sixth form admission numbers for external applicants. This year they have to be named in the different schools. So we've got Bulmer School, Enbrook, St Crispin's and Wangels. So the maintained schools have named their numbers that they will be accepting external applicants from. There's also a reference to education, health and care plans. These came in September, so therefore now this needs to be recognised in the criteria. There's also a clarification to criterion A for looked after and previously looked after children. This makes it clear in the admissions criteria. There's also more clarity around siblings clauses, and also some more clarity about children who are born in the summer as well. This is an area which has become more prominent with parents making more choices about when they would prefer to send their children to school, particularly around obviously summer births and whether they would prefer them to go at 4 or at 5 to school. And lastly, just some changes. So very minor changes this year, so I would recommend this to the executive.
Thank you, Charlotte. Any questions? Angus?
Sorry, it's me again. If a resident or residents are in the catchment, in the Woking Borough, in the catchment of a school outside our borough, part of working without catchment is Edgeborough, are they only affected by rules, similar rules of Bracknell Forest, or come into play?
They would, I believe they would request a application form from us. We would coordinate the arrangements, and the admission arrangements for the schools such as Edgeborough would be through Bracknell, but we coordinate the arrangements in terms of we have cross-authority arrangements, because at the same time whilst they may be also applying for Edgeborough, they also may be applying for a school within our own borough as well. So, also just to note, these arrangements also include in-year transfers as well. So this is primary and secondary as well. So it's all makes it much easier if it's all coordinated in that way.
Any other questions? Pauline?
Thank you. Whilst I recognise we've got no control over the academies, particularly Maiden Early, and they set their own admission arrangements and numbers, and in fact their admission arrangements I know are different from ours in terms of prioritisation. I note that on page 45 you've got numbers of sixth form admissions for our schools, but you don't have numbers of sixth form admissions for the academy schools. I recognise you're not responsible for it, so I'm just wondering if you could give me some assurance that the total capacity across the whole borough is adequate at sixth form level.
Thank you. I believe that at the moment it's adequate. There's quite a lot of movement, obviously, because many of our children leave at sixth form. However, there has been the raising participation age, so children are staying obviously in school longer. This may affect the capacity going forward. But having said that, last night we've got permission obviously for opening a brand new school, so that's for the planning commission, so that's very exciting. So that will bring forward capacity at a later date there. We obviously have got Bratton on Wakefield College on our doorstep, so a number of our children go there and do, you know, succeed at sixth form there. So, you know, there are lots of different options for all of our pupils here, and staying within our own borough isn't sometimes something that our students want to do. Also, Forest just have recently expanded their sixth form, so there is lots going on and lots of different choices as well.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll move straight to the vote. And keep your hand down, Malcolm. All those in favour, please shout. That's unanimous. So we move on to the next one. You, Malcolm, again. Real baptism of fire. Item 127, Arborfield Cross Relief Road, 127 to 136.
Excuse me, I will go and take a stroll.
So you're going to get the copies in, right?
This item is basically about the Executive adopting a preferred option alignment of the Arborfield Cross Relief Road and enabling a solid progression of enhancement and detailed design all the way through to a full planning application. The details as follows. In 2014, the Executive agreed to progress with the refinement of the Arborfield Cross Relief Road Option B to gain greater confidence in scheme delivery. Option B was the public preference of over 70% of those who responded to the public consultation. As part of the refinement study for the Relief Road, the Council has undertaken a number of liaison meetings with parish councils, landowners and with residents living close to the road alignment. To date, all directly affected landowners have expressed a willingness to engage in negotiations to acquire land for the road. The visual aspects of the Relief Road will be reduced by constructing the road as close to and below the existing ground level where this is achievable. Extensive tree and shrub planting will be provided along the road, and at the most sensitive noise and visual receptors, landscaped earth bunds will also be provided. The Relief Road will be a single carriageway road with a 50-mile-per-hour design speed. A 40-mile-an-hour speed limit was considered, but from discussions with Thames Valley Police and on advice from engineers, it indicated that the characteristics of the road in general, rural environment, would make a 40 speed limit difficult to enforce. The Relief Road will have a shallow drainage ditch or a swale adjacent to and east of the carriageway, separating the road from a 3-metre wide shared use path for pedestrians and cyclists. The Relief Road will provide traffic relief to Arborfield Cross from new development at the Arborfield Garrison SDL.
Thank you, Martin. I was at the planning meeting last night and there was quite a lot of time spent on this as well. So it's had a very, very good airing in both the planning application and here tonight. Pauline?
Not a question, a comment. Having discussed several times cycleways here, and in particular physical separation of cycleways from busy roads, I'm really pleased to see that again the borough's putting in a cycleway with a separation from the busy road to encourage people, especially young children, to use the cycleway and give their parents a lot more peace of mind that they're actually not going to end up in the road. So I'm very pleased to see that. Thank you.
Yes, where we can, brand new developments, we should be always doing that. Angus?
Thank you, Chairman. Halfway down page 131, there's various comments about the crossing of public rights of way. And whereas I fully appreciate that there's detailed design work to be done, there are concerns. There's a number of well-used footpaths and horse riding especially. And of course, we expect and hope that those uses will increase with many more people living in Rotherfield. So it's really just to register that and make sure that we do work very closely with the local access forum, the local ramblers, for the interest of the pedestrians and horse riders with this road. I'm fully for the road, everybody is, but it's just this detail of how people can access it and cross it safely.
Thank you, Angus. As the executive member responsible for this before John took over, I know that's very high in the minds of the highways engineers, and I believe that they have planned, I'll have to double check, but I think it'll be our first horse rider controlled crossing.
Pegasus.
Is it called Pegasus? I think all that means is it just as a button higher up. So you don't have to get off here. But it will be, it'll be the first one. So if there's any other questions, no other questions? Go straight to the vote?
Yep.
All those in favour, please show. Thank you. That's unanimous. Is someone going to get Anthony? So we're moving on to the next one, which has already had 2 questions. Local flood management, risk management strategy 137 to 150. Angus, do you want to introduce it?
Thank you. Yes. This has taken perhaps longer than we would have wished to have come forward. It is required under the Flood and Water Management Act, as I referred to earlier. We did have some other things on our mind after February of last year in terms of dealing with the floods then. We have a statutory duty to produce this. It identifies the roles, responsibilities and priorities for understanding and managing the risk of flooding in the borough. And it focuses on flood risk from surface water and groundwater and streams and ditches, as well as how these local sources interact with each other and river flooding. And of course this involves us in very close work with the Environment Agency. We've developed 6 key objectives in this strategy, all underpinned by a number of measures that the Borough Council will implement during the coming years. The objectives are aimed at improving our knowledge of flooding, promoting partnership working and delivering improvements. It's a single consistent reference point for flood risk management in the borough. It has a 15-year time frame from January of this year, so the strategy can take short, medium and long-term views of flood risk management. It must be responsive to change and be continually monitored, reviewed and developed. The most important thing is once this is in place, we will really go into gear with the action plan which is needed to deliver the things that the strategy has outlined. And to assist with this, we've formed an officer and member task and finish group. And this will be a vital part of the work and later further consultation. So we have identified and worked up schemes to match any funding that we can possibly find.
Thank you, Angus. Any questions? Jenny?
Not a question, but can I put in any word for the London Bridge Showcase Cinema roundabout if we have any money that could be used to raise roads and stop flooding?
Chairman, I did refer to that earlier, and that the 327 and the A321, not on the Loddon, but up nearer to Henley Bridge, are the three main areas that we're looking at, trying to find a solution which will reduce the chance of flooding, but will not increase flooding somewhere up or downstream from that point.
Thank you, Angus. Any other questions? I'll move straight to the vote. The recommendation is on page 137. Let's see all those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Moving on to the next item 129, which is page 151 to 154. I believe it's you.
John, again.
Welcome again. You're doing all right.
Right, thank you. This item is basically about WBC making a procedural change in order to maintain the recommendations of the DCLG regarding timescales in the handling of neighbourhood plans. The Department of Communities and Local Government, DCLG, is amending the Neighbourhood Planning General Regulations 2012 to introduce an 8-week time limit to determine neighbourhood area applications. Under the current governance process we have, it would be impossible for the Council to meet the new deadlines. To improve the efficiency of the planning system and to continue to support town and parish councils with the development of their neighbourhood planning efforts, we recommend the Executive to agree that in future decisions to designate a neighbourhood area, it be dealt with by an individual executive member decision, IEMD, and that the Constitution Review Working Group be asked to support this as a recommendation to Council and as an amendment to the Council's Constitution.
Thank you, Malcolm.
So I didn't put the speaker on.
Sorry?
I forgot to put the speaker on.
Any questions or comments? My only request, I totally agree with the recommendation, but I would ask the Constitution Review Working Group to make sure that they do full consultation prior to the IMD coming through. We do that currently on highways when you've got a draft IMD. I'm just concerned that it could be very easy to overlook and slip through, and so I think it is important for the parish or town council to have that. But that will be for the Constitutional Review Group to consider. So, any other questions? Otherwise, I'll go straight for vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. This really is a baptism, Malcolm. Here you go.
It is indeed.
South Wokingham Distributor Road, Eastern Gateway, 155 Can you use the mic?
Oh, sorry. This item is basically about the Executive noting the progress currently being made on the South Wokingham Distributor Road, known as the Eastern Gateway, and approving the ongoing funding and vital stages necessary to continue this up to a planning application. Sorry, this is a long read. The Council has identified a distributor road to provide access to the South Wokingham SDL and to mitigate the traffic impacts arising from the development. In November 2014, the Executive approved the refinement of a route through the centre of the SDL forming the South Wokingham Distributor Road. There is an opportunity to secure the early delivery of a section of the Distributor Road, that being the Montague Park Railway Bridge, and a connection to Waterloo Road ahead of the main road scheme. This project has been termed the Eastern Gateway. Network Rail is progressing with a project to re-signal the London Waterloo line to include the section between Bracknell and Wokingham. The Waterloo Road level crossing has also been identified by Network Rail for a major upgrade as part of the signalling scheme. However, Network Rail has since agreed to work with the Council to deliver the proposed Montague Park Railway Bridge earlier than originally envisaged, and which in turn would allow them to have a closure of the level crossing. Executive is requested to approve funding to advance the Eastern Gateway project to planning application, a number of design, investigation and planning work streams are required to include environmental considerations, engineering and traffic modelling, all of which would contribute to the planning application for the scheme. So the recommendation, therefore, is for the exec to progress with a preliminary design, site investigation works and all environmental and planning application provisions for the section of the South Wokingham Road known as Eastern Gateway. And second point, officers to continue to negotiate terms with Network Rail for securing the Eastern Gateway as part of the overall South Wokingham Distributor Road.
Thank you, Malcolm. Julian first, then Nancy.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Malcolm, for a very comprehensive sort of recommendation. Yeah, I fully support this. Having spent the last couple of months discussing it with the Priest Avenue Residents Association and others, we fully support this, and we think it's great news for the local area that this will be brought forward. So, yeah, from that perspective, fully support it.
Anthony?
You may not be able to answer the question, but when this relief road is fully completed, will it be quicker to travel from Tesco's along this road through Montague Park towards Upper Beach, or will it be quicker to come underneath the railway line, round by the station and back through the town centre?
I clearly have no way of being able to answer that. Unless maybe
I can help.
but I will be able to get you, Rick answer, or
Maybe I
Chairman
can.
may be able to answer.
There are so many variables in that question. What time of day, if something's got
Weather.
screwed up somewhere, etc.
Where everybody else is going.
So there is a natural propensity for drivers to migrate to the quickest route. We all do it. And that it may well be, at times it'll be the distributor road, sometimes it'll be another road. So, nice try.
It's important if it's a distributor road and it attracts traffic.
So, Angus.
Thank you. Yeah, on that point, that was part of one of the reasons for this road, hopefully to make the centre of Wokingham town a more pleasant place to shop, with less traffic going through. I've got two points which don't necessarily need an answer, but I do want to register, because if you build these roads in sections, some of the things you know you're going to need and want by the end may or may not get fed in for each stage. And the two things here are a pedestrian subway or bridge at the Waterloo crossing, because when they start building houses there, they will want, for instance, children at Crispin School, pedestrians and cyclists. So I'm not saying necessarily that need to be built at this stage, but it needs to be kept on the agenda. The other one is, if you build just this section for some time, the traffic will have one option of then going on to Waterloo, the southern or southeastern section of Waterloo Road, to then get to the top end of Old Wokingham Road. And that is a very dangerous bend along that road. It's quite narrow, something that obviously will need to be beefed up at some point. So that does need to be part of the discussion at this stage, whether it needs to be, and whether the modelling shows it needs to be done at this stage or later. I refer to this because once it's over the railway line, it's moved from Julian to Wharton.
Everybody wasn't going to notice.
You didn't declare an interest. Actually, I'll put my old hat up and I'll help you out, Malcolm. The bridge over the old crossing, or whatever the mechanism, is definitely still there to the front of people's thoughts. The rationale for this is actually really piggybacking on something that Network Rail are doing. So that's what's driving this. If we don't, we have an opportunity, there's a window.
Got to grab it.
And if we don't, what most people have been complaining about with Network Rail, you don't get bridges for 25 years, will happen. This is a great opportunity. So. But we need to make sure that your concerns are fed into the system.
Most definitely, Chairman. I'm not trying to hold anything up at all. It's great news that we've got this opportunity, and I do understand it. It's just the thinking of feeding in these other things as we work.
So I'm sure Malcolm will take those back.
Good.
Charlotte?
Thank you. Not really a question, but just a point. Whilst there'll be rerouting going on for the Eastern Gateway, it's really a request that for the sake of businesses and residents that the other roadworks and building works for new houses are taken into consideration, and that not everything is all done at the same time. Because we've had a lot of roadworks going on, and obviously Level Crossing shut for the last about 10 weeks now. So that would be something that I would want.
Anyway, your point is well made, Charlotte. I think
I can give you several other routes.
I think there's a general principle which Malcolm's making a note of, that when big projects like this, we need to make sure that other projects don't get in, so it needs to be closely planned.
Building should be solutions, but not anymore.
And I can see Heather also taking notes as well. So, okay, so if there's no other questions or comments, I'll go straight to vote on page 155. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. And it's Malcolm again. Commuted Sums Advisory Panel.
Not the Shakespearean voice. This report seeks to bring transparency and public accountability to the process of using commuted sums secured from developers for affordable housing. As the Council could receive over £60 million worth of commuted sums for affordable housing over the forthcoming years, there is a need to develop a Council's commissioning role and to formalise the governance of commuted sums expenditure. It is proposed, therefore, that a new advisory panel is established which would make recommendations on commuted sums allocations to the Executive. As part of this new governance, a new process would be established consisting of an initial bidding round to be screened by the Affordable Housing Implementation Group. This would then be followed by the development of more detailed business cases which would be considered by the panel. The primary delivery vehicle for commuted sum funding schemes would be Wokingham Housing Limited, but in exceptional circumstances, the Housing Service, HRA, or a registered provider could be chosen. And the recommendation is that the Executive approves the establishment of a commuted sums advisory panel to make recommendations to the Executive about the allocation of commuted sums for affordable housing in the interest of transparency and clarity.
Thank you, Malcolm. This is actually part of a bigger picture on governance that we've been improving significantly the governance of our companies, both Optalis, WHL and the holding company, and this is just another part of that improved governance, because we're getting into a situation now where all our companies will have quite large sums of money to play with, and therefore it's critical that we have absolutely the right level of governance. So, are there any questions or comments? Pauline?
I noticed the distribution of the agenda minutes associated papers. I presume the executive members could opt in if they want to receive them as well.
I will have to check that, but I imagine.
I'm sure. We will make sure that happens. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? We'll move straight to the vote on page 161. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. That's unanimous. I think that's all for you, Malcolm.
No.
You can have the next one if you like.
Thank you. Continuation of public health functions, contract extension, page 171.
I'm sorry to break up the Malcolm Richard show. Okay, this is quite straightforward. This is continuation of the current contract. It allows us to extend it for one further year. It's within the budget, and then we'll go out to negotiation and contract after that. So, any questions?
Any questions or comments? Pauline?
Sorry, just one very minor one. I assume the new contract will be in the contracts database so that we know when it's coming up.
It will. Yeah, it's part of the yeah.
Thank you. So if there's no other questions or comments, I'll move straight to the vote. All those in favour? Chair? That's unanimous. And that's the end of the agenda. Closing at 10 minutes after 8, which is probably a record.